I'm Ian, CEO of Sequence, a blockchain design agency in Manchester. I've been fascinated with crypto and blockchain tech now for about 3 years. I could chat about it all day and I can't wait to see where this journey takes us.
And I'm Dom, CEO of Formation, the digital innovation agency. I'm also CEO of FIQ, a fintech consultancy, and co-founder of Techie, a blockchain intelligence game. I'm a little bit obsessed by what this shift to new forms of computing means for the future.
Today, we have Rich on from Launchpool. Rich and his team built a launchpad, essentially a Kickstarter for blockchain platforms.
It's been an amazing success so far. In just 9 months, they've got 20 live projects, £5 million total raised, £400,000 average raise, and 15,000 active investors on the platform. So, Rich, it'd be great to know a little bit more about Launchpool, how it started, how you first got into the blockchain industry.
Yeah, sure. So I got into blockchain industry probably like most people do, on the promises of great riches and shiny things. So I think actually the first time I remember somebody talking about blockchain, it was Bitcoin. I think it was on the news, and Bitcoin had just passed through $1,000. And I kind of thought,
how long ago was that?
2014, 15, something like that. So I think just shortly after that, I bought some Bitcoin, maybe some Litecoin. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, that was basically at the top of the 2014 bull market, and then hodled for quite a while as I saw my investment decrease. Yeah, and then so obviously after that, I took some interest in blockchain. I found the concept of it interesting, and I followed it for a while. But my first recollections of what was going on in the industry then, I seem to remember it's all a bit hazy, but I seem to remember color coins was a thing on Bitcoin. And then after that, there was the continued bear market. A lot of the talk was about the scaling issues of Bitcoin and stuff, and the different factions and a kind of war around it turned me off a bit. And so I kind of lost interest a little bit in blockchain through 2015 and 16. And then in 2017, when the bull market came back, my friend, who is the CEO of Alphabet, Liam Robertson, kind of run me up and was like, have you seen what's happening in the crypto markets? You should look at it again. And that's when I kind of got back into it and went down the rabbit hole, I think you would say at that point. That's when I kind of really got to grips with the concept of what blockchain is and what crypto is. And never kind of looked back. And then I worked full time for Alphabet. My first, I think I started doing some consultancy work for them in the end of 2017, and then full time for them early 2018.
What kind of investments were Alphabet making at that stage? It was sort of the emergence point, I guess, of more sort of systemized platforms, built around smart contracts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Around then, as with new technologies, people kind of overthink, or their estimation of what can be achieved by the technology is too much. And so I remember, Dentacoin or, all these sorts of different coins that thought they could solve all the world's problems. There was a lot of that in 2017. And Alphabet invested in lots of those projects, and many of them made lots of money, and many of them lost lots of money. So and actually that was my kind of first role there, was to kind of screen them, do due diligence on the teams, the projects, the tech, that sort of stuff. That was my first role. So it's a great way to kind of start in the industry, really, because I got subjected to all these different projects and all these different teams and all these different use cases. And that was really interesting. So
that's when I got into it, probably about three and a half years ago. And when I look back now, how far it's come on, it's just crazy. I think back then, it felt like there was a lot of people thought they had this solution, but no problem. Yeah, and they were just trying to fudge it in.
Oh, absolutely.
Back then, but now it's like the viable products and stuff. It's just crazy how far it's moved.
Yeah, it's definitely matured. I think it's become more and more business-like you say. Then there's now a problem-solution element to every project, and people are much more sort of. I think people understand the limitations of the technology a lot better now, and I think that means that the people that are investing are much more sort of savvy and that probably can't be done. that might be able to be done, this kind of thing. So yeah.
So it sounds like the time at Alphabet was a kind of perfect lead into Launchpool in terms of the sorts of things that you were doing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, a lot of what Launchpool is about is what's called a launchpad. It's slightly different to other launchpads, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But essentially, yeah, we launch other projects, other crypto projects, and as a sort of leader at Launchpool, you have to decide what's good enough to come onto the platform and what isn't. So it was a perfect sort of start for me to do that.
So tell us a little bit more about Launchpool. How it works for the average user. What's the proposition?
Yeah, so I suppose a good place to start would be, where's Launchpool come from and why is it there? And the team at Alphabet in 2017 and the sector as a whole, there was this sort of a kind of nefarious narrative, I suppose, that, I mean, it might have been true to some extent, that VCs and early investors would get the best prices, the best deals, and then they go and dump on retail investors. And that was bad for the industry, bad for retail investors. It was only good for a few people.
And retail investors is the general public.
The general public, yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to create something whereby we could build a platform where retail investors or the general public could get access to the deals that VCs were getting on the same terms, the same price, and the same vesting sort of constraints or contracts that VCs were getting. So yeah, that's what we did. We brought together a number of funds in the industry, and we sort of said to them, we can build a platform where there are benefits for everyone. So there's benefits for the VCs, because if you have a group of retail investors coming in early on, they can do a lot of the hard work for you in terms of building a community, doing some of the marketing, and lots of things that a VC can't do. If you've got 1,000 people already in your community, they do a lot of the work for you. And that's true of the projects as well. Projects need to build a community. So if you can give them a community to start with and vested over a longer period of time, then it sort of incentivizes that community to stay around and to be part of that project and extol the virtues of that project for over a good period of time. So yeah, and then obviously the benefits for the investor were that they're getting better prices, better deals, and they were getting their tokens released at the same rate as the VCs. So if they wanted to sell when the VCs sell, they could do. If they wanted to hold, they could do. It's up to them. So yeah, so that's what we did. We created a platform, brought all of that together, and yeah, that's what Launchpool is today.
And I think like the main thing that I've witnessed from it is the stronger, the more projects you get on there, the more people that are getting involved, the more stronger everyone else gets too, because these projects are going to do better and better because of the community is aware of them through Launchpool. So if you've invested in one, it's gone quite well, you're more likely to go into another one, and it's the growth's there. Everyone grows together, get better opportunities.
Yeah, that's it. And it's everyone in the community is kind of learning together as well. So you get different levels of investors. So you get some people that have been in the crypto industry for a long time, and some that have been there, just joined. So there's a kind of transfer of knowledge that goes on in the community, which is very beneficial, certainly to the newer entrants. But yeah, you kind of grow together and you discuss kind of what some projects have done right and some projects have done wrong, and you just become a more discerning investor through a sort of herd sharing of knowledge.
So what does it look like for the average user? So if I'm a member of the public, I come along to Launchpool and I want to start using the platform and investing, how do I do that?
Yeah, so Launchpool is regulatory compliant. That's one of the things that kind of differentiates us from some of the other launch pads. There's two main differentiators for Launchpool. One is the regulatory compliance. So we KYC all our users. So if you wanted to join our community, you would have to KYC through the platform. And then secondly, we are what's called a pre-IDO, which is a pre-initial DEX offering Launchpad. So that means that you just get the deals earlier instead of a typical deal for the public would be a more expensive token, but all available to trade straight away. Our deals are a cheaper token, but not all of the token is available to you straight away. So as an end user, you would come on, you would KYC, you need some Launchpool token. And with that token, you then, for any project that you like that's on the platform, you do something that we call staking, which is basically putting your Launchpool token into a smart contract for a period of time. And dependent on how much Launchpool token and for how long that Launchpool token is in the smart contract, you are offered an allocation dependent on those two variables. So if you have lots of token for a long period of time, you'll get more allocation than if you have a small amount of token for a short period of time. And then at the end of a period of time, you're offered the allocation, you can turn it down or you can accept it. And if you accept it, you need to pay for that allocation in a kind of stable coin. And when you've paid for it, you get your Launchpool token back.
Would that be like a week of the whole
typically
process?
the process lasts about 10 days.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of a day to get into position, state your token before the reward window opens. Then there's a period of about 7 days where the reward window's open, where you your allocation accrues. And then you have a kind of 2 to 3 day window to pay for the allocation if you want to pay for it.
Yeah. Have you got like there's a good range of projects too, isn't there? Like, you know, it's just not all sort of finance sort of stuff. It's it was like the CBD one. It's you know, it's interesting when I look now, like the range of different challenges and that the projects are trying to solve. Just off the top of your head, give us some examples.
Yeah, so there are projects that want to bring together centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges in one place, so you don't have to keep swapping from one to another or, you know, logging into one platform to another. So that was one of the first projects we launched, which I would call kind of DeFi, I suppose. There's another DeFi project we did which takes your collateral and goes in search of yield, so return on your collateral. But then the next project we did was the CBD one, which is providing collateral to marijuana farmers in Africa to start with.
Yeah.
Providing collateral for them to sort of start up a business and get the most out of that business in terms of, you know, looking after the crop, getting the best, highest amount of produce, highest amount of yield out of that crop. And then selling that produce on the market and paying back that loan. So that's all sort of facilitated through their token.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have sort of gaming tokens. We've got a couple of those. Prediction markets. So it's essentially gambling, betting markets. So there's all sorts. There's a wide range of projects that we have on.
Just like various disruptor, you know, markets everywhere, really. That's the thing about like blockchain that I'm really excited about, like how it's disrupting every sector.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. And Launchpool, that you've got that variety on there.
Yeah, there's no sort of particular industry vertical that we, you know, sort of say, oh, you must do this or you must do that to kind of get on the platform. The different things that we look for in projects are much more based around, you know, what a typical investor would look for, you know, in an entrepreneur. You know, it's the team, it's their ability to execute, it's, you know, their business plan. Does it make sense? You know, it's kind of traditional, sort of in that term.
And what does that process look like? Is there a team or a panel that work through that process with you when teams apply or projects apply to be listed? So there's a first sort of round which I don't get involved in. So projects apply, there's two routes. One, projects can apply to us, but I'd have to say 90% of our projects come from our industry contacts. So people we know, referrals, which always helps because straight away you kind of, there's a level of trust there because, you know, they're friends of friends or something. It might not mean much. Doesn't mean we don't
do anything differently, but it just helps us to know that the project should be of good quality. So yeah, there's a first round. Our analysts have a first meeting with them. They look at, the general overview of their project, what they think of it, and then if they like it, they will do some due diligence in terms of the team members. They'll KYC the team, they'll KYC the business. And at that point, if that all comes good, then it kind of gets to stage 2, which is where myself and my project manager will kind of have a call or an interview with the project. And if we like it straight away, then we kind of move straight onto onboarding, or there might be a process of back and forth. I don't like this about your project. Oh, we'll go away and change it. So there's a bit of that as well.
I'm going to go and get another beer. So Rich, one thing that I think about a lot is the bull market, bear market scenario with blockchain is based on the Bitcoin halving every 4 years. That's what people are working off. So we're coming up to the end of the bull run, which we don't know when that's going to be, but it's all speculation. But we probably all agree that the bear market is on its way, and that's when people will be taking profits, and settling down. As a Launchpad type of Kickstarter project, how do you see, and that needs users to sort of like get involved? What's your plans to sort of counter that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And whether you think the bear market is here or whether it's coming in 6 months or a year.
I hope it's another 6 months.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Look, it's something we've always thought about since the very inception of Launchpool, because Launchpool's business model is essentially focused or tuned for a bull market. So as I said, it's always been our intention to kind of have an early stage incubator, which we believe in the crypto world, when it's a bear market, traditionally you biddle or build. What we've set out from the outset is to create an incubator, which we've named Launchpool Labs, and that is for our community to get involved in projects at a much earlier stage. So Launchpool projects typically are already partly funded, already partly developed, and are kind of looking for that final investment to get them to market. Launchpool Labs, our incubator, is right at the beginning. So people that have an idea, people that perhaps just have a white paper or a deck, or maybe they're a bit further down the line, perhaps they're a tech team, but they're only a tech team and they're not a marketing team, they're not a community or anything else. So Launchpool Incubator is earlier stage investing, even cheaper token prices, but even longer to wait. So higher risk, high reward, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what Launchpool has done to deal with the bear market, or to kind of protect our investors, I suppose, from a bear market, because these projects will take 3 probably to 6 months to build out. So you need to invest with that sort of time horizon, or maybe even longer. And then also what we've been doing is we have recently partnered with the world-renowned traditional tech accelerator Techstars, who have been around for maybe 20 odd years now, and have done accelerators with Microsoft, Nike. They've had 11 unicorns, including Uber and DigitalOcean. So we've partnered with them to do their first ever Web3 accelerator. And for us, that kind of brings everything together. So we have the incubation, which is the ideation stage. Then we have the acceleration, which is taking it from kind of on paper to an MVP, or, almost a product release. And then the kind of final launch pool, which is where we started, which is actually the kind of final stage where people invest just before a project goes to market.
And will Launchpool Labs always be the only feeder for Launchpool, or are they going to operate independently?
No. No, they all operate completely independently. They do feed each other where possible. So a project that comes through Launchpool Labs can go on to the Techstars Accelerator, and then can go on to Launchpool, but you could come in at any one of those and not do any of the others.
Rich, I'm going to ask you a question now. You know, you've been working on this now for 12 months, I believe. Now you get into this point where like recognised people in the sector are working with you. How does that conversation start? And did you approach them, or did you expect that they wouldn't reply? Or, you know, is that flattering?
Yeah.
Does it give you gratification that you're making a difference?
Yeah, good question. It was really sort of born out of Launchpool seeking to extend its services, and in doing that, we're always looking for partners across our industry, and we kind of just started looking a little bit further afield. And then once we sort of just kind of realized there's some traditional tech accelerators out there that we could partner with, and that would be a great story, not only for us, but for crypto as a whole, I think, because there has been some problems or issues that crypto has had in kind of making itself accepted into the wider world, often because, you know, there's people say, oh, there's this that happens, you know, it's Wild West, or it's, you know, used
one bad incident, just
exactly, or it's used for crime or things like that. So it's had a bit of a bad reputation. So we also thought having that partnership with someone very respected in the traditional world would help to alleviate that sort of perspective.
Did you have a middleman, or did you just fire an email? Or I'm really interested in how that works.
So one of the guys that works for Alphabet, he just approached them and said, are you interested in working with us? I think initially they said no. Yeah. Although they have worked with crypto businesses before, and they have launched crypto businesses before, none of those crypto businesses have had tokens. They've always been sort of infrastructure businesses. So it took a bit of persuading to tell them that actually a tokenization model where, and I think they probably had a similar view to the general public in that our tokens are just magic internet money. But actually, when you explain to them that it's a means of incentivizing your customers, or in crypto called community, then it becomes a whole different thing. And once you realize that, then people are much more open. So, I can see how that is actually a new thing, a new economic sort of paradigm, I suppose.
Don, we should do a podcast just on like tokenization, because that's just the stuff I've been learning about. That it's just crazy. Like you get your friends and family to help you buy a house with tokens, and like it's not there yet, but in a couple of years it's football clubs, and it's just tokenizing anything. And once we get the infrastructure into that, we need to. Do you know anyone that knows about that stuff?
Yeah. So, Rich, it's been great to hear all about Launchpool Labs. I mean, just to sum up, it'd be really good to have a quick chat about where you see Launchpad platforms like Launchpool going in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting because Launchpool was kind of born out of an idea we had a long time previous to its actual launch. But since we launched, a lot of launch pads have come out, and it was a kind of a way for projects. It became the de facto way, I suppose, for projects to get to market. Launchpads originally came out to provide liquidity to projects so that they could list on Uniswap, where you are required to provide liquidity yourself. So it was what called an initial DEX offering, or an IDO, and there would be a kind of public sale where the money from that public sale would go to be used to provide liquidity on Uniswap. That's how they originally came out, and I think sort of PokerStarter was probably the first one. And then as it became successful and more came around, and then when we launched in February, we're actually a pre-IDO, so we don't sort of have the same model as them. We don't, the capital that we raise for projects isn't used to provide liquidity in DEXs. It's just used to for whatever business needs that project has. But because we're doing that, we were doing bigger raises. So we were typically raising $500,000, and these launch pads, these sort of IDO pads, were raising $100,000, let's say. And then when we came on the market, I think they looked at us and realized they were smaller, and they needed to increase how much they were raising. So they started increasing how much they were raising, and eventually they got probably to the same amounts that we were raising. But what that meant was that because they are not pre-IDO, they're IDO, so all their tokens are liquid straight away, you suddenly have all these people with lots of tokens ready to sell straight away.
Yeah, you get immediate volatility.
Yeah, well, they just crush any momentum that project's built up, and any buying pressure that they would have on listing, because the community wants to buy the token when it lists, is immediately sold into by the people on these IDO pads, because they just want to flip a coin. And the reason I'm sort of saying this is because that determines how I think the sort of the sector will pan out. IDO pads, the traditional IDO pads, I think they're probably done almost, unless we get a bull market, a strong bull market back, where it makes sense for them. I think they're done and they're gone. I think pre-IDO pads, where launch pads, where investors have a vesting period of 9 months, 12 months longer, then there's a future there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the way we've gone. And again, as I was sort of saying before, even taking it back even further to an incubation and 2 years vesting, whatever.
And the vesting periods means that you have to take it out slowly over, it's drip fed almost.
Exactly.
And you have to wait until it accumulates and then you take it out.
Yeah, it's a different kind of investing. It's a long-term investing. I mean, I understand people want to make money. Well, our investors want to make money, but what we want to do is launch successful projects. We don't just want our investors to make money. We want our projects to be successful. Yeah. And that means that they need to be given a period of time to make their projects.
You're actually helping the people that have invested, because if they took it all straight away, they're just going to dump. The fact that the vesting period's there means that it can build strength and build the product, and you're actually protecting their own investments really as well.
One more question around what you just said in terms of protecting that investment. I mean, if you look at some of the more traditional VCs, you could argue they're less so now, but like say Andreessen Horowitz, what they tend to do is provide a huge amount of infrastructure around their investments. They'll provide them with expertise, they'll provide them with CRM support, they'll provide them with connectivity to a huge network of people who are going to help that business succeed. Is that something that you see Launchpool doing more of in the future, and helping sort of build almost that kind of success support expertise and infrastructure around projects?
Absolutely, because as I said, as the whole market matures and gets better, it gets more competitive, and every launch pad or every investor even needs to offer that project, the best project, something that other investors can't. And this sort of feeds our focus very much now is on providing projects communities, because I think that is the hardest thing about a project. Generally, for projects to build out, they are usually devs or entrepreneurs that have a vision, have an idea of what that should be. Very seldom are they community builders. And so for us, I think in crypto particularly, it's all about community. The token holders are it's kind of like shareholders in a way, except that it's an immediate way for your community to show their satisfaction or dissatisfaction in your project is by buying or selling your token. And so that immediately becomes a much closer relationship, I think, between your consumers, your customers, your community, and you, the project. So I think that relationship that's the way business as a whole will go. Crypto is leading the way. And I think that is where we, particularly at Launchpool, aim to differentiate ourselves, is organically creating a community, not creating one just by paying some influencers in tokens who are then going to sell onto their followers. It's actually to have ambassadors of our program in countries across the world or parts of the world where where we're all in this together. We're all a community together, profiting, but also getting satisfaction out of building successful projects together.
All down the rabbit hole together.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, Rich, we've got another beer here.
Nice. Thank you. Better be good this time.
So, anyway, like for me, like the blockchain industry moves so quick. Like, how do you sort of keep on top of, like, when people are telling you about this great idea they've got, like, how do you, you know, because obviously you've got to vet it and stuff like that, but like, how do you have to do like intense research and figure it out quick? How do you keep on top of like all these changes and all these ideas? And
yeah, that's a good question. And I think to kind of keep on top of it all to a level where you know absolutely everything is impossible. Blockchain now has got so many different areas that people can be experts in. You can't stay on top of it all. So what I do is I just try and stay on top of as much as I can of the stuff that I'm interested in, and therefore that's kind of easy to me. But there, yeah, if we get onto the kind of technical protocol, you know, consensus mechanisms and things like that, then I need to refer to experts. But generally what I do, I love Ethereum. That's, you know, my main thing. So I kind of I'm very interested in following the development in Ethereum. You know, ETH2 and sharding.
I had you down as Bitcoin. I don't know why.
Proof of stake.
I had you down as a Bitcoin.
You know, I like Bitcoin as well. I like Bitcoin as well, but no, Ethereum for me is a bit more interesting, just because it moves quicker and it changes and it's more innovative. So yeah, all the different parts. You know, move to proof of stake, all that kind of stuff. The whole scaling debate, I think, is very interesting, and part of that is other projects. So Polygon, you know, is obviously a way to scale. And then you could say that Binance Chain and all these other chains that are popping up are just ways of scaling Ethereum. You know, that could be your narrative if you wanted to push that. So for me, all of that is interesting. I stay on top of it mainly through Twitter. Crypto Twitter is probably the place where I get
good old crypto Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. That's where
everyone
pops up straight away, isn't it?
Yeah,
and then I always find myself kind of bookmarking a couple of tweets a day, and then every so often I'll go through my bookmarks and delve a bit more deeply into stuff.
I think like that, like when I speak to people about like, and people say like, how did you get into it? First thing I say is like, I created my own Twitter account and just followed loads of people and I just read like for 20 minutes a night, and for the first probably 18 months I had no idea what they're talking about. Like especially like the trading side of things, which was a lot bigger 2 years ago. It's like a lot more product based led now, especially with NFTs and stuff like that. But that's such a huge resource. Crypto Twitter, it's just huge. CT.
Yeah, CT. That's it. It's massive. And actually I think it's when you just said that there, it reminded me of when I was a kid, or not a kid, but when I was sort of 18, 20, reading Financial Times and not knowing half of the stuff that they were writing about in there. But if you keep reading it and keep coming across it in different contexts, you learn what they're talking about. Yeah, and it's kind of the same with
I used to read the Beano. A Match magazine.
No, I know what you're saying though. I mean, it is literally impossible to keep up with everything, isn't it? I mean, but yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm spending 2-3 hours a day, I think, reading about specific things, and there's an explosion in different things. You know, like you say, not just on Ethereum in terms of scaling and all of the technical innovations that are going on there, but there's an explosion in different types of chain as well. It's sort of the layer 2 chains, side chains. You got some really specialized ones coming out like Avalanche.
Yeah.
I was looking at Nervos the other day, which is a Chinese based. New blockchain, which is really interesting, and they're trying to solve some of the really niggly technical challenges around security and scaling.
It's interesting to sort of, I always come back with things like that, and I think a lot of these projects are probably technically absolutely brilliant, but I always come back to the amount of time that Ethereum's been around, the tooling that has built up around it, the dev mindshare that is involved in it. And that makes me wonder if any of these other blockchains can really challenge it. I don't personally think they can.
Who are the rivals Like, off the top of your head, I've got a couple in my head, but I'm always interested to hear, like, because there's quite a lot of them out there. The Ethereum Killers, who are there?
Yeah, well, that's it. There've been many, and most of them, or a lot of them, have already fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
But what you sort of see, it's kind of flattering to the Ethereum, I suppose, is that all these Ethereum chain killers are all, the only reason they have any success is because they have an EVM or an Ethereum virtual machine, which is basically Ethereum on top of their infrastructure. And that's the only way they can kind of gain any
traction
is because they are Ethereum.
Yeah.
Do you think that counts for the really highly specialized chains, though, like say Flow, which I've been looking at recently?
Interesting.
The project I'm involved in, which obviously the Dapper Labs with their first projects with they're Ethereum based anyway, but they're migrating to Flow, and I think must be a future for. I think there is a future for multiple chains, but some of them are going to be really highly specialized for very specific use cases.
Yeah. Well, I should probably be clear. I also believe in a multi-chain future. I don't think Ethereum will be everything to everyone. I think it will be definitely the dominant chain. I don't think there'll be a kind of Ethereum killer as such. There'll be nothing that takes Ethereum's place, but there will be plenty of other chains that do. Flow is a perfect example. Focusing on NFTs and that kind of that use case. And there are some other really good ones that I think will do really well. Near Protocol seems to be pretty good. Avalanche.
Not financial advice.
Yeah, and then there are some that kind of seem to have already fallen by the wayside. EOS, that springs to mind.
Yeah.
And Tron.
Yeah. Didn't they copy the white paper?
I think he did. Yeah, pretty much. Might have added a couple of words in or something, but yeah, essentially. Yeah, and and he copied the.
That's speculation, by the way, as well.
And copied the actual code.
Speculation.
All Tron is essentially Ethereum with a different consensus mechanism.
Yeah.
Which is basically what Binance Chain is as well. I think smart chain anyway.
Yeah, it's Dapper Labs Flow with the NFT movement. I played a lot of NBA Top Shot. It's just a huge market share now, and it's bringing a lot of people into the space. Gaming and real world sports. They're doing UFC soon, aren't they?
What's interesting to me about that is whether those people will then sort of continue into crypto, or whether they're just going to stay in that. Yeah, that top bit where they're not really subject to crypto.
Yeah, it's one of my main areas of interest. Really, is and it has been for years. In all the things I've done is how more advanced technologies get really consumerized, because I think there's a lot of barriers in the way at the moment to people getting really deeply involved in crypto.
Oh, huge!
There's quite a bit of friction. Even just to sort of create a wallet, and on a sort of secondary level, if you build some sort of dApp that you want people to start using, then there's usually multiple steps that they've got to do to that, particularly if it's mobile. I don't think the native mobile problem's really been solved at all yet. And I think when that gets solved, we'll see a bit of a wave of innovation and new projects. But yeah, I think that's an interesting point in terms of whether the NFT market, I think in a lot of respects, feels to consumers more of a playground than currency. Yeah. Investment and currency trading.
It's a gateway at the moment. The NFT space.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's such a good use case for crypto, and if you've got a game that you purchase assets in, and you want to be able to take those to another game, or you've invested so much time and effort in a game, you should be able to get some reward from that, shouldn't you? So
FIFA is the best example that I always use. Yeah, it's like Ultimate Team is like you'd pay money into the ecosystem of FIFA, and when they bring the new game out a year later, you lose your team, which is just mind blowing. And the market share and how much that turns over. I just imagine that you could take that NFT over to another game, and the portability of it all is just incredible.
Yeah, no, I find that fascinating. I think that I'm really interested in sort of the future of identity and how NFTs are going to enable people to sort of carry the little sort of pieces of their identity around between different environments. And I think as a mechanism for sort of unlocking content and unlocking specific rights to do things. It's really fascinating. I think that we're only sort of scratching the surface of what
Yeah, and I wonder how it'll happen
NFTs
as
can
well.
do in that sense.
I wonder if it'll be kind of, like the banks are kind of very anti-crypto. Will Sony be anti-crypto to a point until it gets to a point where people don't play their games anymore because they can't take their skins out and they can't take their guns out and stuff, and then they'll have to sort of accept it? Or will they lead it?
They've got to.
There's always a point, isn't there, where consumer pressure kind of reaches that tipping point, and you've kind of got to get on board with it. And when the consumer expectation is set that's sort of that's their right to take their property around with them. Because I think at the moment, if you look at something like Fortnite, then arguably they're issuing NFTs of a sort, really, in that when you buy your in-game stuff, but they're not transferable. They are yours in the context of your copy of that game, but you can't take them.
But they're not yours.
They can't take them around with you.
Slots in the ecosystem. I think that's one thing that I've always seen as probably off crypto Twitter, really. It's just like the blockchain movement is just all these companies that have massive, domination in sectors. If they don't embrace this, they will just be left behind, and they won't even know that it's happened to them. Like Yahoo, basically. That's what's going to happen. I think if they don't adapt, then they're just going to be left behind, and one day they'll go, where did it all go? And like you say there, the example of like we talked about FIFA and Sony, they must have teams working on stuff here. They know it's coming.
You'd have thought so, wouldn't you? But yeah, you don't know, though. These big corporates get so stuck in their ways. Maybe they think we don't need to worry about it. We'll never do that until, I don't know, Pro Evolution Soccer does it or something.
I think they've just changed the name, actually, weirdly. I think they have. It's good. Now you mention it, I definitely saw a tweet yesterday where they're taking everything online. Right. So maybe it's just one step away. From that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I suspect most of those companies are at least sort of investigating this kind of stuff. But I think the problem they've got is it's a lot of what the technology enables in terms of sort of distributed trustless computing is fairly at odds with what their objectives are as companies. And I think that's probably the main challenge.
Guarded and taking all the profits. Yeah, it's like the banking industry, isn't it? It's a few years ago you might have said, "Oh yeah, I'm sure the banks would be into blockchain because they could see where all the money goes and everything." But actually, they're dead against it because it means they lose control.
Yeah, no, I came across that problem a while ago when looking at developing a public blockchain application, and the various banks that we were talking to and involved with were dead against it. They saw the value in having a distributed solution and a private blockchain that they could use as the basis of a trading platform, basically for debt. But yeah, we're highly against any sort of public visibility.
Is that what you heard, Dom? Is this part of your journey? You saw the light and thought, I need to move on here. So, Rich, just got a text from RBS.
Yeah.
I'm just telling everyone who I bank with, but I just had the text that says that we're stopping deposits into Binance. And I know there was a couple of other banks the last 2 weeks. So with Binance, what do you think this is? Do you think the banks are genuinely like looking out for our best interests, or are they following regulation? A little bit of both, or are they just scared? I think I know the answer, but
I think yeah, a little bit of everything. I think they are slightly scared. I think there is a coordinated effort around the globe from regulators to crack down on Binance, specifically. And our regulator, the UK regulator, cracked down on derivatives, which they have done or said they were going to do years ago, and have just carried through with it. And I think that's completely fine. I think most people that trade options in the UK,
it's like leverage trading, betting against, and it's going up and down, gambling, essentially.
Exactly. Don't really know what they're doing.
It's an extremely risky type of investment. It always has been,
and I think that's fine. I think it's a shame that they're going after the Binance on-ramp and off-ramps. I never use Binance for off-ramps, so I don't really know. I've not been affected. I always use Coinbase, and that seems to work fine. So.
Yeah, I've been Binance just keeps dead easy. It's like £1 to withdraw like any amount. Like so I've used Coinbase, but they were like just started like getting caught up with the US government, and suddenly, even though I'd give up like my ID and been through all the KYC, they just said like,
this is Binance.
Sorry, I'm talking about Coinbase.
Right.
They just like stopped my account for 3 weeks and made me submit everything again. But then they started saying that like that there'll be a reviewed and there was errors. Right. That went on for 3 weeks, so that actually pushed me to Binance, just because they're a little bit looser.
Yeah.
But you know, we always knew that this day was probably going to come with Binance.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand it. They are a bit shady, aren't they, in terms of where they're domiciled and, you know, who their regulator is and stuff. So I kind of get it. I mean, I love CZ. I love Binance. I'm very impressed by everything they've achieved in the sector. But if you try and live outside the rules, eventually they're going to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think the regulation one's a tricky one, because I mean, undoubtedly, to a point at least, all of this will be regulated in some way, shape, or form. Do you think that could come too soon, though? Is there a danger? I mean, you work with a lot of early stage companies. You know, you work in this sector overall, which is, you know, arguably very early stage as a whole. You can see from other industries in the past that regulation imposed too early, even if it's for consumer protection, can stifle
Absolutely,
innovation.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the Wright brothers didn't have a pilot license when they first did their planes, did they? The whole industry does need regulation. You know, people need to know where they stand, and it just needs to be done in the right way, in, you know, working together with regulators. And I think generally regulators want to do that, and generally crypto companies want to do that. So, you know, there are kind of outlier instances, I suppose, where a particular regulator wants to come down hard. But
one thing that'll happen is like regulation will come, but people will just move on. They'll just keep moving, because people in crypto don't want to be regulated. That's the whole point of decentralization.
Regulation arbitrage, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you go to a jurisdiction that doesn't regulate you.
MetaMask and different exchanges. People will just move on because, you know, and right now, if you were going to take some out back into fiat to cash, you use like Coinbase or Binance, but essentially in the future, hopefully, we won't need the banks. You know, that we'll be able to pay with things straight through crypto, and that is where everyone sees it going, right? That's true believers in the space. So, in my opinion, like you get a few banks, especially in America, where they're like, you know, building, you see them hiring for jobs and stuff like that. That again, it comes down to like sectors, and are they going to embrace it, or they're gonna, you know, they're just going to fight it? You know, look at PayPal. You know, they could have just said, you know, no, we're not going to do this. We've got our thing going here, and they've embraced it. And that's just how you've got to be.
Yeah, I think
Revolut as well. You know, they're selling crypto. You can hold crypto on there, but the traditional banks where they'll give you a loan for 16%, but they'll give you 0.5% on, on your interest. It's just the dying sector, isn't it? And they're going to hold off as much as they can.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how it's going to play out. I mean, the other thing I was reading this week was about the EU wanting to ban anonymous crypto wallets, and I think you could make a strong argument as to whether that's even possible, certainly in the short term. And you have always got that sort of undercurrent of, there is the sort of crypto true believers, you know, who want to. There's almost a level sort of, you know, destroy all traditional financial institutions, isn't there? In many respects, but I think what's interesting to me is how that will play out long term, and it comes back to the idea of sort of incentives with tokens, I think. And if you get large sort of crypto first distributed organizations, is there actually an incentive for them to operate in a sort of ethical manner anyway? And, you know, they become sort of the new institutions, but they're behaving in ways which are perceived to be ethical and
somewhere in the middle.
You know, good for everyone. Yeah, I guess.
Leads us on nicely to DeFi, another podcast topic we'll have to do, decentralized finance. But, you know, like some of the APYs and stuff on the DeFi platforms are just crazy. Like you must be on a couple there, Rich. You know, which DeFi projects do you interact with? Aave is one of them.
Aave is my main one. Yeah, I think across most of the sort of what people might call blue chip DeFi projects, those APYs have collapsed. They're a lot lower. I think the sort of big APYs were there to incentivize. You know, that's what our crypto is about. You incentivize certain behaviors through economic reward, and that's what everybody's doing. And now that all those economic rewards have run out, the incentivization isn't there, the APY isn't there. So I think it looks a lot more traditional in terms of return on capital.
Do you think that's because we're coming to the end of the bull run though? Like now everyone's trying to convert to stable coin, like to something that's not volatile. Suddenly everyone wants that rather than the other. So suddenly,
I think that's it. I also think it's the maturation of DeFi. Now that there are blue chip companies, you don't need to incentivize someone to put their stable coins to get the capital off them, because I can put it in Aave and earn 3 to 5%, which is much better than I can get on the high street, and I know it's with a reputable crypto company.
Yeah, so. with Aave, and I've not actually used it, but do you have to stake up? You have to lock up some of your your ETH or whatever. Yeah,
but it's not locked for a period of time. You can take it out whenever you want, and you put it into the platform, and the platform lends it out on your behalf to someone else.
Yeah,
and interest.
Definitely
interest. You get the reward.
Definitely DeFi podcast going down the line. I think one nice easy one to end on.
I can see that.
Yeah. So, who do you think Satoshi is? The creator of Bitcoin and essentially blockchains.
I think it is I think to say that this is one single person. There may have been one person that kind of wrote the code, the end code, and published it, and I think that may have been Hal Finney. But I think there are a lot of people that were involved in getting Hal to that point, including people that are around us today, Adam Back, for example, to his...
Why do you think they never come out and talk about it then? That's a mystery.
Well, he does talk about what he's done. What was it? I can't remember what it's called. Was it eCash or something that he did? And then, a few other participants that have done other similar sort of, or provided similar sort of mind share to the end product. So.
Do you think it might be in respect of Hal Finney, the memory of?
It could be, I suppose.
Because I always think like ego would always catch up with someone eventually. If
I think because they're all born out of this cypherpunk thing, that to actually take the credit would be the opposite of who they are.
What they all believe in.
Yeah.
And none of them have got like access to like what's it called, the Genesis wallet or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's no point anyway, except like Craig Wright, always saying that he created
the first million or something, wasn't it? Cool. Yeah, and if it moved, then
then
there'd be a problem.
That'd be interesting. Look out for that.
Yeah.
But what's it? 11 years now? 10 years? 11 years?
Yeah, 2009, wasn't it? So
yeah. The strongest computer network in the world. Never been hacked. Not financial advice.
So, Rich, it's been great having you on. Thanks so much for coming. Where can everyone find out more about Launchpool?
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been great to be here. You can connect with us for Launchpool at Launchpool XYZ, or we hang around on Telegram quite a lot, as does a lot of crypto, and that is Launchpool XYZ.
Cool. Let's go and get a beer.
Or Twitter, Launchpool XYZ.
So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. A little insight into the blockchain space. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
System shut down.